Welcome, everyone, to Dragon Talk. How are you doing? We are here in the studio. I'm Greg Tito, and I'm joined by these amazing folks. Chris Perkins.
Yes.
And Matt Cernit.
Howdy.
Hello. We had a busy weekend in Dungeons & Dragons land, to say the least. Chris, you were very busy.
A bunch of us were.
Yes.
And scattered hither and thither.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you did a show on Friday night?
So I was at PAX Unplugged
Right.
in Philadelphia, and yeah, we had a live dice camera action game Friday night and a live Acquisitions Incorporated A-Team game Saturday night, and then I also did a little Ben Wins Minions game on Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah, and there was also an Acquisitions Inc. C-Team game there.
On Sunday.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And then on Saturday, we had our long marathon Forged Grey
That's
session.
right. What was 7 hours?
7 hours.
Yeah.
Poor.
Wow.
I mean, I think it was actually like 6 and 22. I guess
That's
there was an
some
hour
serious
beforehand
stuff.
that was the previous episode. But man, Matt Mercer.
I saw the setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And make sure you watch all the way to the end if you haven't already, folks, because it is it's not a typical ending to a
Right.
D&D session on our channel. I'll leave it at that.
But, you know, Matt does Critical Role, and sometimes those games can run 5 hours. So, you know, what's another 2?
Exactly, with an intermission in the middle and all that. And then getting those celebrities and actors and comedians all together is always tough. So if you do it, make it worth your while. Right?
Lock the door and keep them in there.
That's right.
Keep the story going along.
Play them till they're dead.
So it's pretty awesome. That video is available. It's the capper to the Forest Grey Lost City of Omu kind of series finale-ish thing. It'll be up on YouTube very soon. And we're, of course, pushing Dice Camera Action up on YouTube. And I believe the Acquisitions Incorporated will be up on the Penny Arcade YouTube channel as well.
Very soon.
So, if not already.
Yes.
Which I'm pretty sure it is. Couple more announcements before we get into doing lore you should know. I think we're going to try to do 3 topics today if we can.
Yeah.
Guys, we got
I'm ready for 2.
You're ready for 2. And then that third one is a total crapshoot. Who knows?
We can probably wing the last one.
Yeah, we're you guys are good at that because it's prep is good, but then it's all in your brain pans anyway.
Right, yeah.
It's my job to eke it out. And then we're going to do an interview around 4 p.m. With Rudy Rutenberg and James Hake, who will be joining us in the thing here. What's this called? The studio. That's not the exactly. He'll be here in Seattle. No Shelley today, sadly. She is recovering from PAX Unplugged and we're getting ready for a Turkey Day on her end with Mr. Bart Carroll. So it'll just be me flying solo for the rest of this today. A couple of fun announcements. Of course, Xanathar's Guide to Everything is going to be out everywhere tomorrow. I don't know if you saw my tweet over, I guess it was Friday that I started that out, but it was up to number 7 on Saturday. Amazon's total book list. All books, not genre, not D&D books, not even games, all books. It was up to number 7 sold before it was even out. The next book that was able to be pre-ordered was I think ranked number 54. So we were quite high up there, and excitement is super high for it. It's been out in game stores already. A lot of people have it at home.
Yep.
Are already
signed
playing
a lot
with it.
of them at PAX Unplugged.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, there's people with the special edition. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yep.
I love that. The alternate cover designed by Hydra 74 is badass. Even people who don't follow Dungeons and Dragons want that book. My
They're
brother.
both pretty covers.
They're both really good
choice.
covers. Yeah, it's a Sophie's Choice kind of thing. It really is. It's, of course, out digitally as well. You can get it on Fantasy Grounds and on D&D Beyond. It'll be out on Roll20, I believe, soon is the official answer there. Tomb of Annihilation is the storyline that we've been talking about a lot. That is, of course, out everywhere and available. Beamdog has got something really fun going on. Shout out to them. Go check out beamdog.com. Their website has a countdown that will be resolved in the next day, or I think it's in the last 24 hours. So they always do these countdowns for things coming on. They've got some really, really exciting. So pay attention to that and follow them on Twitter as well to see about the new thing that'll be popping out there. I wish I could give you all the hints in the world, but it involves... What can I say? It involves the moon and the stars. That's enough of a hint. I don't think you guys even know what's coming, do you? You guys are in the dark.
Blink.
The dark, as it were. See if you can put those together from my clues. WizKids, the Tomb of Annihilation adventure system game is out now. We have a few copies here in the office, and they're awesome. They come in 2 things, so it's a good way if you want to get the premium edition. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get all the pre-painted minis in there, and you know exactly what you get. So it's a nice way, even if you can't find the friends or you're going to play solo, you get those minis in the premium edition. The standard edition has them in one color, but you can, of course, always paint those and make them pretty on your own. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms has got a Feast of the Moon event that is now live through Tuesday, 11/28. So that's next week. And you can unlock the Turtle Druid Champion of Groma. And there are free gold chests, and there's a code that you can get. So look on our Twitter, actually, for the code that only you guys, only D&D fans can get. It's the Feast of Hemo on 17 is basically how it goes. But look for us on our Wizards of the Coast, Wizards_DND Twitter account for the exact naming on that. And you get some amazing stuff. That's only until tomorrow. And there'll be 6 new DLC packs for the Force Grey Season 2 characters. I don't know if you know, but all the characters that are in Force Grey are in Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, so you can get it out there too. And if you're looking for more information about what an Idle game is in the Dungeons & Dragons world, go check them out at Idle Champions on Twitter, and they'll be streaming later on this week as well as next week about what that game is all about. There's a D&D coloring app. Did you guys know this?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's you can get it on your phone. It is from the people who made the D&D coloring book, Candlewick Press, and
for people like me who can't stay in the lines.
This
is really good.
This lets you do it,
yeah.
Right? And it's, I mean, for people who have kids like me, and you can give it to them, and it's free, totally free. I think you can purchase within it to get more additional stuff, but most of the content is all available for free there, and it's great during dinner time conversations to have them color. If you're at a restaurant that doesn't already have coloring stuff going on, you can supplement it at the very least with some of that. Totally fun. Also, Hand Cholo Jewelry has some of my favorite things out there. I really love the ampersand as well as the Beholder pendant that you can get on there. Quite expensive, but totally worth it. Might be a good thing for Christmas time for that D&D fan in your life that you've been holding back on. It's definitely
You've been holding out on them.
You've been holding
Why
out
have you been holding out on them?
You could totally get them better stuff. Now is the chance to do it. For sure. All right, and then of course today this is on American time zones. We've got less programming going on this week because of Thanksgiving on Thursday, but we will be here in the office. Me and Pelham are holding down the fort for today as well as tomorrow. There won't be a Dragon Plus. There will be some other stuff going on in that 2 p.m. Time slot. I believe we'll be hosting D&D Beyond is doing a dev talk during that time. I'll be back here for D&D News. We're starting that a little bit early. I think we're going to try and do 3:15-ish, and then end that around 3:45, and get Chris Perkins time to do another episode of Dice Camera Action.
Another episode, woo!
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Episode 70, right?
That's right. I can't guarantee there will be any turkeys in the episode other than the players.
Suboptimal turkeys may be involved.
We had a really fun game at PAX Unplugged, I'm just saying. It scared the bejesus out of the players.
Nice.
So, and now we're bringing back Ross O'Donovan, Rubber Ninja.
Nice.
To wreak his vengeance upon the party.
Sweet. And you, I didn't get to watch the whole video, but you took them to Sigil. Is this correct?
It is true. Yes. They had a brief moment there.
I saw Holly was very excited.
Yes, and then they went screaming back into the Forgotten Realms.
They're like, we can't do this. We're not worthy. But in honor of that, that's actually one of our lore you should know topics today that we'll be getting into.
Oh, that's the third one I'm not ready for. Cool.
That's the one. Yeah, that's
All right.
We're gonna wing it. We're gonna wing it on the City of Doors.
No,
what do you
I got
think?
it.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that makes sense. Great. Well, I can't wait for that. Tomorrow, episode 70. We're getting past that. I think we're only a few days in episode 69 territory, so that's good. We want to get that going. Click to the next one.
Yeah.
And we're excited where Dice Camera Action is going.
Yes.
I want more and more hints of where it's going to go in the future.
Deeper into Chult.
Deeper into
the
Chult.
foreseeable future.
Until they all die.
Yep.
Very cool. I'm excited, and yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all the stuff I want to get to right now. We'll be taking the rest of Wednesday and Thursday. I think Wednesday still has misclicks going at 4 p.m. As well as high rollers at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. But the rest of the stuff is going to be kind of hit or miss as people take the week off. But we'll be back full strength next week, and I'll tell you more of that tomorrow during D&D News as we get to all that scheduling stuff taken care of. All right, people. How are you guys doing in the chat? You guys having fun? I saw someone subscribed, Phoenix1106. You're a good person. Just wanted to say that out loud because it is true. All right. Well, if no more call and response, we're going to go right to the fun stuff of lore. Which one do you guys want to do first? Good Wyrms or Evil Trees?
Evil trees.
Matt's been waiting for this for 6 months.
Yeah, he's been holding on to this one. Just so you guys know, we do like a brainstorming session, every 6 months or so, where we do a whole bunch of topics, and this is one that Matt has been wanting to do for a long time.
Since I was like 10.
You're like, I could go back to old 10-year-old Matt Cernit and be like, I finally did it.
Every Monday, Matt comes in the morning. It's like, is it Evil Tree Day?
It's like Christmas today.
It's like Arbor Day every day here at the D&D offices.
All right.
All right, cool. Are we recording? Nice.
Yeah, I heard the click, click, click.
Oh, you did? Okay,
like
good.
3 minutes ago.
It's always good stuff. We're getting hours of outtakes to give to you guys on only when you really deserve it. All right. Welcome to another segment of Lore You Should Know. My name is Greg Tito, and Lore You Should Know is where we talk to Mr. Chris Perkins.
Hello.
And Matt Cernit.
Hi.
About amazing little tidbits of Dungeons & Dragons lore, Forgotten Realms lore, other random Dungeons & Dragons topics that you can put into your game or just for your own edification.
Things that are stuck in our head, which we want to stick in your head.
Exactly. Yeah, it all came from talking to you guys, and they're like, oh gosh, you have so much wealth of information, and now we get to share it with you, our listeners, and the world.
Yep.
And today's topic is one that Mr. Matt Cernit has been wanting to do for a long time.
Yes.
Evil trees.
Evil trees.
Evil tree monsters, or just evil trees?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're monsters in D&D, right?
Yes.
So, like,
right.
Yeah.
I think we can preface this by saying that more than any other game I've ever played, D&D likes to take innocuous things, ubiquitous objects, and make them terrifying.
Right.
So be it a chest or a rug or a tree, there is something in D&D in that form that will try to eat you. As it happens, trees seem to be a favorite.
There are a lot of them. Like,
Yes.
a lot of them.
Yes.
And so when I was like about 10 years old, I was at a friend's house and looking at various monster manuals and monster compendiums and stuff like that. I was like, what is it with the evil trees? There's like 5 evil trees in these books. Like, why are there 5 evil trees in D&D? That is so weird. And so this morning I went and I tried to find as many as I could.
Nice.
Right.
And it's not just, that idea kind of came from Tolkien a little bit, I think. The Ents and the they were definitely like, when you were first introduced, they were evil in the storyline through Fellowship of the Ring-ish.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that idea just kind of stuck in a lot of people's brains, but there were obviously folklore way before that as well, right?
Yes.
Well, sure. It doesn't explain.
No. That's where my brain went. Were there others like you who were just obsessed with evil trees?
I think it stems from the fact that, humans would go into forests to get, their wood and stuff and forage and whatnot, and you were always surrounded by these titans, and your imagination starts to go wild, and you have kind of like Tim Burton moments of fearing that the tree is going to eat you, and plus the shapes that trees can take sometimes can personify them. And so D&D designers just sort of took that ball and ran with it all the way around the multiverse.
And again.
I think some of it was accidental. Like, they didn't know there was already an existing evil tree that they could use, so they created another one. And so
I think it was purposeful. I think that they looked at the evil trees that were there and they were like, you know what? Those evil trees don't suit my needs. I have a new evil tree idea that is far superior.
this tree is different because it has teeth.
There's a different niche somewhere of evil treedom that needs to be filled.
Plus, there are different kinds of trees. So you've got like evil cypress trees and evil oak trees and evil,
Yep.
And each one of them needs its own
Right.
D&D
Yes,
monster.
exactly.
Clearly.
Of course. Yes.
Clearly.
So where was the first evil tree in D&D?
Ooh, the first. Well, I'm certainly there's the treant, which isn't evil. But I think Monster Manual 2 has some of the first ones.
Yep.
The original Monster Manual 2.
That's right. The Hangman Tree appeared in the Monster Manual 2, which is a tree with vine-like growth that the tree itself can make into loops and use it to basically drop down and strangle passersby.
There's also the infamous wolf in sheep's clothing in that book.
Which originated as the cute bunnyoid on a stump monster in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. And it looks like a tree stump that has a little bunny on the top of it. And that bunny is actually a growth that grows on top of the stump. And when you get too close, the roots spring out and grab you, and tentacles, it has sort of eye tentacles for some reason that appear. It basically lures you in because you want to go over and pet the little bunny.
Oh, look, it's so cute.
And once you get close, it sprouts a big horrific maw in its trunk and then grabs you and eats you.
Yeah, you gotta get really close.
You gotta get really close.
So but do people have that effect on bunnies? Like, I feel like once you're an adult, bunnies run away. So you're doing like, I'm gonna go.
It's like, that bunny's not running away. What's up with that bunny?
Yeah, maybe it does want to be my friend.
Yeah.
So is it wood?
It's wood.
It's an actual wood. So it has to be like a silhouette or like dark lighting or something like that to really kind of be believable, right?
Whatever.
Who knows?
It was first depicted in black and white art, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Line drawings make it a lot more believable.
Yes, exactly.
That book also has the lesser known bark burr.
Bark
Yes.
burr. What's a bark burr?
I don't know. It's a plant.
Yeah,
that kills you.
Right, and it's got little burrs. The other monster that appears in there is the Quickwood,
Yes.
which is a sentry, not century, but sentry tree.
Like a watchful eye.
Tree. It's
Yeah.
got like hidden eyes in it, and it basically just watches. I don't think it was actually evil, mind you. I think it was neutral. And
Interesting.
later editions probably unaligned, but basically it was a servant that you would plant, and then if passersby walked by, it would spy them and then be able to relay that information to its master somehow.
Yes. Also known as the spy tree, as it
There we
happens.
go.
Yes.
Oh. That seems
Yeah.
like that was like a wizard spell that someone used and then was then codified into
Right.
a monster,
Yeah.
right? Or
Right.
if you
Yes.
cast the spell, you would create this monster and then you could
Yes.
have it for your own
Yeah.
bidding.
Later editions gave us the Iron Maw,
Yeah.
which is a kind of a leafless, kind of dead-looking tree with a big, giant mouth that eats you.
There's also the camp fault.
Camp Folt.
Campfault
Yes.
was a second edition tree, this sort of withered, emaciated tree whose branches it could wrap around you and pull you in and strangle you.
I'm sensing a lot of themes with a lot of these trees.
Yeah, I mean, like they're pretty much all the same.
They just have different evocative names,
Right.
perhaps.
Surprisingly, most evil trees are of the deciduous variety, not the coniferous variety.
However, there is the rare Cedar Spawn.
So what is the Cedar Spawn? You were joking about this earlier. What is a Cedar Spawn?
So the Cedar Spawn is from the Dragonlance. What is it? The Saga editions of the game of Dragonlance that were done, and it's from a particular adventure there. I think that's called Chaos Spawn, and basically they're evil trees and they're carnivorous cedars, and so they look like angry Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And yeah, well.
Ho,
there you
ho,
go.
ho. Hum, hum, hum.
That's about it.
Make sure you use that in your game in the December months, people.
And we probably shouldn't forget the Orc Wart. Did you track that
Yes,
down?
I
in
did.
your
Yeah.
Mysterious
Yeah.
journey?
Monster Manual 2, 3rd edition. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Orc
was
Wart.
that was a tree that sort of would fruit with these big bulbous
Sacks.
that would then fall to the ground and break open, and inside would be this gooey mass, and out of that would arise essentially this weird orc-like thing that was a plant.
What?
And then it would wander around, and I don't know, you'd kill it or something, and then another Orc Wart tree would grow there or something like that. Yeah.
Were they actually seeds? Like
Yeah, they were basically seeds, the living seeds that
Yes.
would wander off
That's
from
actually
the tree.
very terrifying, though.
It does paint a terrifying image for sure.
It does. Like I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, again, a little bit more Tolkien imagery, but like that Sauron in,
Right.
or in
Yes.
Peter Jackson's of like, having them in these pods. But what if they came from other?
It does have
Yeah.
that sort of pod people feel to it.
Yeah.
It was super gross, yeah.
And it also meant that you could have minions to defend the tree. It wasn't just the tree you were fighting, but it's also its little pod creatures.
Right, and you had to kill all them because otherwise more
Yes.
would pop up.
Which brings us to the doppelganger plant.
I forgot about that one. I didn't know
Yeah.
that one. No, wait,
I wrote
no.
I wrote an entire adventure based around the doppelganger
Really?
plant. Yes. for Dungeon Magazine, issue 38. It was called Horror's Harvest.
Oh my gosh.
And a doppelganger plant is basically a vine-like plant that has pods that the plant psychically imitates people around it, gives birth to duplicates, and then they crawl out of the pods, murder the people that they're imitating, and replace them.
Ugh.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't really qualify as a tree if it's just a massive vine.
I was going
We
for
should probably
mainly trees.
distinguish
I have a
Yeah.
whole column in my Excel sheet things that are not trees.
Right, yeah. I guess that's technically not a tree. So going back to evil trees, there's the Galthius tree,
Yeah.
which originated in the 3rd edition adventure, The Sunless Citadel by Bruce Cordell. And it is not an ambulatory tree. It is a tree that is kind of infused with evil because it's got vampire's blood that bled into it through its roots. Its roots sort of sucked up the vampire remains or whatever. And it breeds these creatures called blights.
Oh,
Blights,
okay.
yep.
Yeah. And so they sort of sprout up around the tree and then go wandering off and kill things.
Is that where blights first kind of appeared? Did
Pretty
they come
much,
from
yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Yep.
And you use blights in Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, they
and-
pop up all over the place. They're very popular monsters, particularly the little twig blights.
Right, because they're lower level threats
right,
that
yes.
you can, but they're still
And they're
creepy.
creepy little scuttly things. Yeah.
There's something very disturbing about that.
Yes.
What else, Matt?
So there's also the Death's Head tree.
Oh,
Death's
right.
Head tree?
Yes, it has these growths. Yeah, go on, Matt.
So it looks like a weeping willow, but then basically it has these heads on the ends of branches that
Like human heads.
they're like these human heads, and they smell rotten and so on. And
Do they speak? Are they sentient or are they just heads?
I think that they are actually sentient heads,
Ooh.
but it basically it has whenever you like fight it has the heads that bite you, like they come down and bite you.
Yeah, because they're on sort of these ropey tendrils, so they can kind of lash down and bounce back and forth. Yeah.
Terrifying idea.
It reminds me of the Audrey 2 from the stage production of Little Shop of Horrors. All of the characters that are consumed by the thing
Yes.
had the heads on the end, and they're all
Right.
like singing and being
It
like,
is
"Hey."
very, very much like that,
Ugh.
only with less singing.
Well, if I was going to run it, they would be singing heads. I mean,
Yeah.
God, that's pretty terrifying.
I don't remember which one it was, but because now it's all mixed up. But there was one version of it that was a really complicated mechanical thing, where essentially the tree is this blood-sucking tree, and when you fall asleep under the tree, it sends down leaves that kind of fall down. They just look like they're leaves falling down, but they're actually still attached to the tree, and they painlessly attach to you and suck blood up into the tree. And then if you wake up or move around or whatever, the leaf flutters away. I don't know how that works, because you'd see the blood that go up into the tree through a straw. Like, what is it? but there's this whole. I remember looking at it, the mechanics of it, because it was fascinating, because it talked about how essentially each one of the leaves was an individual hit point for the tree. That then, if you attack them individually, was of course foolish. Why would you attack the leaves individually?
Right.
But if you use fireball on the tree, that would be very damaging to the tree. It didn't really fix the whole logical problem of like, why does this thing exist?
Is that how the DNA of a person's head got into the tree?
That's separate
Totally
from
different monster.
totally different monster, separate from the Death's Head tree.
Oh, what was this tree then that you were just mentioning?
I was just trying to find it. There's so many of them. I have 36 different.
They're all
evil
different play on
trees.
words on trees and death and.
Yeah, there's the Athasian treant, which is a different version of the treant from Dark Sun.
There's the viper tree,
Yes, the viper tree. That's
which is a tree with snakes that grow out of it.
It's grows in the abyss, and it's basically this big snake tree.
Okay.
There's the tree that's like, but it's actually a beholder spawn. The observer.
Yeah, is it actually a tree, or does it just have a
well,
tree-like
I mean, but
shape?
is the viper tree actually a tree, or is it? Yeah.
I assume so. It kind of grows out of the ground. I think if it's going to be a tree, it's got to have roots in the ground.
We should have established these rules earlier.
And maybe you can rip its roots out and walk around on them for a while, but it's basically affixed to the ground when it's not doing anything.
This makes sense. The
I mean,
definition of a tree.
The elder treant, the forest haunt, the woodman, the gacarac.
What's the gacarac?
It's just a big tree that attacks you. Like all these things are Night Twist, the killer tree, The Octopus Tree. Octopus Tree, I think, actually is aquatic. So
that
it's an
makes
aquatic
sense.
tree.
All right.
Yeah.
So a designer was like, you know what? This is an aquatic adventure,
Right,
but we
right.
still need some evil trees.
All those other
going
trees
on
were
here.
good. We need an underwater tree.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess evil seaweed just doesn't have the same kind of feel to
Right,
it.
yes.
Right?
Overseer is the one that's the Beholder
okay.
King. Yeah. There's the Quickwood. We mentioned that already. The
Yeah.
Wretch Plant. That's an old one. That one goes back. But one of the most recent ones, which is just hilarious, is Saguaro Sentinel.
I was hoping you weren't going to mention that
Of
one.
course, I was going to mention that. You got to be kidding me.
Is that you? Did you do that?
No.
Okay.
No. But it was made on my watch, I think, for a product called Sandstorm, and it's basically an ambulatory murder cactus with limbs, big flaily limbs.
And if I remember the picture correctly, it has all these finger-like limbs and branches and so on as saguaro cactuses do. And I think there's like a bird somewhere in the picture.
Just hanging out on it.
Because the bird would be like, "Oh yeah, this is just a cool cactus. This is not actually
Yeah.
murdering anybody."
Yeah, there's
Periodically, when I tell people how cool D&D is, Matt will send me a picture of the monster to remind me
You're like,
how wrong I am.
Don't get too high. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't be.
Yeah.
No.
it's true.
Yeah.
There's also something called the Scouring Stanchion, which is just an awful name, and it's from Monster Manual, I think 4 and 3rd edition.
Yeah. Sorry, whoever came up with the name.
Yeah. But it is a heinously complex, super powerful, like weird plant monster because at a certain point in the growth of 3rd edition, there was this concept that we had to sort of like fill out the gaps in CR and creature type.
I see.
And so you're making Monster Manual 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it was, and it's like, okay, what are the gaps and I need to make a high level plant. Scouring Stanchion.
Because we want 17th level characters to still be fighting evil trees.
Of course we do.
This makes sense. Wait, and stanchion, isn't that a
Have
word
anything
for
to do with trees?
Yeah, isn't that like a thing you use to like block off people with felt ropes and whatnot?
Yeah. But of course, there's also the Topiary Guardian, which I mean, legit, I think that's actually a fun monster.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
There are Topiary Guardian naysayers out there, but I'm not one of them. I think it's kind of cool if you walk into a garden with all these trimmed animal forms that one of them might come to life and eat you.
Oh, all right. Well, that makes total sense, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the way those things, Edward Scissorhands kind of like makes it out. You're like, oh yeah,
It could be pretty terrifying too. Like if you got a topiary elephant coming at you, I'd be pretty scared of that.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, any plant of any size,
Coming
I mean,
at you.
yeah. I go the other way.
This makes sense. We're sweet. Any other? I mean, I know there's more, but
Yeah, there's so many
I
more.
mean, we could just list them all, but
Yeah.
what's the point?
There is another cactus, the vampire cactus, and that goes way back. Because there are a bunch of sort of not quite trees that are in the lore, and they go, a lot of them. Oh, there's grab grass. There's boring grass.
Terrible name.
it's just it's not very entertaining grass.
Yeah.
It's boring grass.
Yeah.
Strangleweed
Has no nightlife.
Viper vine. I mean, just like choke creeper. Like
Yeah, now we're just into
blood
wacky
vine.
plants in general,
It
I
just
mean.
keeps on going
yeah.
and going and going.
Well,
And
I have to give a shout out to the people in chat here because they've been throwing around some puns like, "Oh, I think it's time for me to bow out of this conversation."
Oh,
And
nice.
would you guys WOD WOD?
Yeah.
You guys
Yes.
mind stopping?
Yeah.
And the cactus.
I'd be happy to stop.
I just want them to keep going with the
It's
puns, and
such a
I'll just
deep
keep telling you
well.
all of them. It's good stuff. All right. Well, where can people find out about all of the trees we didn't list and or wacky plants that are at CR25? Matt, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter at Sernett, SERNETT.
What about you, Chris?
They can't get in touch with me.
Please do not.
Don't ask me about plants and fucking trees.
Send him
My
all
Twitter-
of your puns.
My Twitter handle is Chris Perkins DND.
Awesome. I'm at Greg Tito, and you can send me all of those puns, and I'll send it to these guys. Don't worry about it. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll have a Lore You Should Know next week. Bum, ba, bum. Has this conversation got a bit naughty?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you guys.
That's
You did a
good.
good
That's
stuff.
good. That's
Yes.
good.
Harley, Hanselman, which one did I say? Oh, yeah, no, Akeisha Roberts was good, where she said, with all those stickers, the Cactus will make sure adventurers get the point. Sounds like you've come down with Acacia of the Ponitis.
Oh, that's good. I like that one.
That was a good one.
Wow.
It's good times. And they also said that these puns were just like the sock puppet recap that you did.
Oh, very good, yes. Will be moving on now?
Yes. So next topic is good worms of the north. You guys
Good
ready?
Wyrms.
Wyrms.
Yes. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you a shout out, Dillagaff, and you don't even have to tell me that, but you can tell me to F off. That's the best way to do it. All right, so yeah, you ready? Are we recording already? There you go. Welcome to another Lore You Should Know. My name is Greg Tito, and I'm joined by these lore masters, Mr. Chris Perkins.
Thank you.
And Matt Cernit.
Hello.
And today, in Lore You Should Know, where we go through a little bit of Dungeons & Dragons lore and give it to you piecemeal in fun ways that you can infect it into your game, we're going to talk about good Wyrms of the North, which is to say dragons, named dragons. The Forgotten Realms has a bunch of them. And Chris Perkins, in his day at Dragon and Dungeon, you edited the article about the Wyrms of the North.
That's right. Ed Greenwood wrote the series of articles back in the day for Dragon Magazine, and he included a bunch of chromatics and a bunch of metallic dragons, which are the good ones, and even some gem dragons were thrown in there because they were kind of a thing at the time.
Nice.
So I thought we would focus mostly on some of the metallic dragons of the north.
Right. We covered chromatic dragons in an earlier segment.
That's
You might
right.
have heard that already.
Yep.
But these are going to be the ones that can be used as patrons or just fun,
Exactly.
wacky characters,
Yeah.
not some that will necessarily destroy your party.
Exactly. One of my favorites was L'Amarantage.
L'Amarantage.
Yes, a bronze dragon. And what I loved about L'Amarantage is that he is basically a merchant shipping magnate.
Interesting.
He has a fleet of ships that course up and down the Sword Coast, and he sort of visits them and dumps messages on them bad choice of words. Visits them and gives messages to their captains and just make sure they're all on track and everything's going well. And also is kind of a bane of pirates, and so has waged battles against the pirates of Luskan and made enemies of its high captains, all in defense of its shipping fleet.
Yeah, I think he's got like a particular flag or
The
trademark.
scaly eye
That is-
banner,
yes,
which looks like an ornate eye against a blue field. That is sort of his symbol that is on his flags and icons.
Yeah, and I think like it's like the iris of the eye looks sort of like a scale shape or
Yes.
something like that, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of the idea
That's the
there.
tip-off.
That's his little
Get it?
little hint
Yeah.
that a dragon's behind. But otherwise, it's sort of a big secret.
Right.
that
The captains don't reveal that they work for a dragon.
Oh, I see. So I was going to ask, does he conduct his business in a polymorph form, or is he always as a dragon?
So to his friends, he appears in his natural form, and when he must hide himself, he can veil his appearance. But
Yeah.
he's actually
So it's we're still talking about Lemros, right?
Yeah.
Orlumbor is like this weird island out in the middle of the ocean of the Sword Coast, and the people there kind of live in sort of these sea caves, kind of, and they build ships, and they're awesome shipbuilders and so on. And their island is protected by the Witch of the Waves, and that is actually Lamaraz, who is also known as the Claws of the Coast, in his disguised form.
Yeah.
Sort of portrays himself as this sorceress who protects the island from various X, Y, and Z.
Interesting. All right, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
I like that.
Another bronze dragon of note, and we can mention him briefly, appears in Storm King's Thunder, and his name is Gallows, the Flying Misfortune. And what's cool about him is that he's one of the younger dragons. In most of the dragons that we see in Ed's articles were like old, very old, or ancient. This was a rare case where Ed actually showcased a fairly young dragon. He's called the Flying Misfortune because of his outlook on life. He's this devil-may-care gadabout who doesn't have any fixed lair but has lots of places where he likes to sun himself, and He just has a knack for getting himself into the worst possible trouble. And so that's how he earned his name. And he also earned his name because people have witnessed the dragon like fly into things and crash and
Whoops.
land on top of a Zentarum caravan by accident. We're not really sure, but you know, it happened. Mistakes happen. But he is this kind of goofball.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I think he's kind of endearing.
I thought bronze dragons always kind of had that character too, that they were always a bit mischievous. Or is that
that's not so much a bronze characteristic as maybe a brass.
okay?
But bronze, they tend to enjoy warfare and they prowl the coasts and things like that. They love the water. So he is a little bit of an anomaly for a bronze dragon. Other bronze dragons would go, that boy ain't right.
He needs to get his.
But his optimistic spirit and his can-do attitude always went out, and so he's kind of a lovable dragon in that regard.
I like that.
That's really all there is to say about him. If we want to get into one of the more mysterious and weird dragons, let's go with Nimr.
Yeah.
Nimr.
So Nimr is a bronze dragon that has been for generations sort of the patron of a family in Waterdeep, a noble family in Waterdeep, the Silmarelves. And so he has been sort of this weird, I don't know, he's sort of played the part of this sort of family ghost that's advised the Silmarelves through portraits of their elders and stuff like that, and kind of magically pointed them one direction or another and tried to sort of form them into sort of a good noble family.
And it's hard to ascertain why he picks who he chooses to talk to. It's usually someone in the family that he has warmed to for whatever reason, and then, like Matt says, speaks to them through these portraits. So it's possible that the person being spoken to has no idea that they're being talked to by the dragon. They think they're being talked to by like their ancestors.
Does the dragon appear as a dragon in these portraits, or as?
No, it's portraits of their ancestors or whatever on the wall, in the noble houses. So they have a place in Waterdeep. They have a place. I think it's Stormhaven House. I'm not positive that's the name of it, but that's up by one of the forests north of Waterdeep. And so both those places he manifests through portraits of other people.
So he magically puts himself in the paintings and talks to them as if.
It's like the painting is talking to you, but there's no lips moving or anything. It's just you hear the voice of the dragon emanating from the painting.
I got it. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what is his connection to this family? Why has he chosen this family as his who he should be guiding?
Gosh, I don't know that the article explained why he chose them.
I think ultimately he's a force of good in the world, and he believes that in the ancestry and the blood of the Silmarel family, there's the potential to do great things and to be great. And so he looks for greatness in that family and then cultivates it as part of a legacy. I think like any old dragon, anything that can withstand the test of time is deserving of consideration, and the Silmarel family is an old family.
Neat. Okay, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so there's, Nimr is in what was it, the Rage of Dragons? No, it was what was the other adventure that we did just recently?
Tyranny of Dragons.
He was noted briefly in Prince of the Apocalypse because that retreat, that Silmarel retreat, is north of the city, was mentioned briefly.
Rise of Tiamat, because there's the Council of the Good Dragons in the Rise of Tiamat that come and sort of organize the response, and he's one of them, along with a bunch of others. And there's an interesting idea in both the Draconomicon and 3rd edition, and the Dragons of Faerun in 3rd edition and the Draconomicon in 2nd edition, of this idea of the King of Justice, which is this gold dragon elected to be sort of like the ruler of all the gold dragons in the area, the north, the Faerun, and so there's sort of an idea that among good dragons there's at least an acknowledgement of some amount of organization right among them. They aren't all individuals sort of scrapping for their peace. They have, among the gold dragons, there's this King of Justice figure, and then
there's also Valamarades, the quote unquote dragon queen, who lives up in the north. I think she lives in Silvery Moon. But anyway.
Yeah, that might be right. And they're one of there's a female silver dragon on the council of the Wyrms, who is named Otari Likiakarnos. And it doesn't give me a thing here that says what else the name would be.
But one of the things that Matt brought up is that unlike chromatic dragons, who are fiercely territorial and generally adversarial toward one another, metallic dragons at least can get along in the world. And there's an acknowledgement that, hey, if you're a brass dragon and you're confronted with a gold dragon, you should mind your manners, because the gold dragon is sort of higher up the metallic chain, as it were.
Is it similar to the ordning and the giants?
In effect, yeah. There's a unspoken, unwritten law of order that probably comes down from Bahamut on high, but also because gold dragons are the most powerful and also the most lawful.
Yeah,
that they can impose a structure on the others, and the others are just like fine.
There are certain organizations. So that I forget, one of them is named the right here. There's the Sisterhood of Assembra, and that one character, knows whatever her name is, belongs to that along with some others. But there's also another
Orange
one.
Juice can.
It's expired, but it's okay.
There's another one which was a similar idea, and it has something to do with silver, and I can't find the name of it. But basically, that one is like the idea that these are the dragons who are the paladins of dragonkind, regardless of their color. They're the ones who kind of commit to this code of ethics and try to follow this particular rule, and they have their own organization.
So these are like informal offices almost amongst metallic dragons.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And Nimr, we got on that off of him because was he one of those?
He was involved in the Council of Good Dragons
that all came together.
Came together to
Tiamat.
Tiamat. Yeah.
A gold dragon of note that is worth mentioning, because he showed up in a Force Grey adventure, is Pallor Dusk. He is a dragon who lives. His range is quite large. He's got domiciles up by Neverwinter and also in the Sword Mountains north of Waterdeep. He's got a fondness for gnomes, and there are gnome clans that live in the Sword Mountains that he's very protective of. What's interesting about Pallor Dusk, aside from the fact that he's immensely powerful and has magic up the wazoo, is in some respects, he's like a Cheshire Cat of the North. He is a dragon who you rarely see all of. Parts due to the rituals that he has used to prolong his own life. Parts of his body phase in and out of existence. So when you run into him, you might only see like his mouth and his tail, or his claws, or part of his fin and his wings, and it's sort of constantly shifting. If you see him at all, sometimes he's completely invisible.
Interesting.
And it's just a manifestation of all this magic that he has used to sustain himself. It's not even something necessarily that he can control for any length of time. And so he's just an interesting figure visually. He's also known as the Sun Dragon locally. And Matt picked up on that in particular and kind of rode with that for a Force Grey season.
Neat.
Yeah.
Does he... But you said he's ancient. Like, how is he like uber ancient more so than...
Yeah, he has exceeded the natural lifespan of an ancient gold dragon.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Yeah. And all through this hyper knowledge of magic and being able to phase.
Right. And unlike stupid evil dragons, he's not going to go after the cult of the dragon and say, make me a Dracolich. No, he's going to try to use his own learned magic to sustain himself. He's not... Other dragons have had mixed success trying to do the same thing, which brings us to Miram, the silver dragon of Candlekeep.
Ooh. Right, yes.
Who lost her body.
Yeah, so Miram's now kind of a ghost in the belly of Candlekeep.
Interesting.
And exists in a sort of semi-real state. I mean, she's not really technically dead, I don't think.
It's unclear. Her body deteriorated, and all that she is able to manifest now are her spectral jaws.
Right, which we mentioned a little bit during when we talked about Candlekeep.
And in her most lucid moments, she can be quite conversive and is happy to help you find things in the depths of Candlekeep. But as it says in the Wyrms of the North article about her, she is not entirely sane anymore. The loss of her body and her kind of entrapment in Candlekeep has made her a little bit barmy. And so if you if she thinks that you've stolen a book,
Yeah.
whether you have or not, she can just go absolutely nuts and start chomping you to bits.
Oh, because that is the worst. Any librarian will.
Right.
She's
yes.
gonna be super uber
That's
pissed.
right. She's all soft and all that, but you do something wrong, and evil librarian comes out, and she will eat you up.
With her spectral jaws?
Yeah.
Where do you go when you get
You
eaten by
die.
spectral-
She chews you up, and you're just like pulp.
Okay.
Yeah, on the
but
floor.
can't actually be
exactly.
consumed.
Yeah, she leaves a mess behind.
Okay. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also there's a small area in the Fields of the Dead called Tempest's Tears, and that has a bronze dragon protecting it called Amarasantha. Nope, not gonna try it again.
You picked the good ones, Matt.
And I like that one because like the whole community of gnomes and dwarves is basically hidden under the ground and buried, and this dragon is protecting it. And it's just kind of this. It's like they're happy to just do their thing out there in the Fields of the Dead. Nobody really knows about them. Oh, and by the way, they have a dragon protector. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Technically, that's the Western Heartlands.
Is it? It's on the edge of the Fields of the Dead.
Yeah. I thought the Western Heartland started basically south of Dragon's
Oh,
Square
I
Castle.
see. Not in the north.
Not in the
well,
It's a worm of the Western Heartlands now.
You just got rules lawyered.
Then we couldn't talk about Nexus.
I don't even know who Nexus is.
We'll get to that
That's
in
not
another.
real.
It's totally fake, not real dragon.
His name is only 2 syllables. He can't be real.
Yeah, right. There's an X
Unless
in it,
he's like
though.
5 years old.
You got an X and a U. That's most of the.
Dragon name, for those who don't know, in the Forgotten Realms, your dragon name gets longer the older you get.
Oh, it gets added to it?
Yes.
Is that the
it's
story of the
additive,
name?
Yes. So when you're a wormling, you might have a name that's just like 1 syllable or 2. But as you age, you rack up more syllables.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is the name like the story of your life in a way?
It could be, but usually it's just to annoy people. It's a prestige thing. It's like adding Esquire on the end of your name, or insisting on being called doctor because you have a doctorate and things like that. It's just a prestige.
That makes sense.
And an indication of your age and power.
So Nexus's long name is Larendramagar. Larendramagar.
So Nexus is more of a like a nickname, I guess.
Yeah.
Which we've been saying a lot of their nicknames.
Nexus is another sort of gold dragon, ancient worm, kind of super wizard, or maybe sorcerer, in the sort of the idea of the King of Justice, during like the last Dragon Rage or whatever, the King of Justice died or was deposed, I forget which, but anyways, there's not a currently sitting King of Justice, and so there's a couple of candidates, and one of them would be Nexus, who is this super wizard dragon.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned Dragon Rage. What's a Dragon Rage?
Good question.
Yeah. So every some number of years, and I'm going to get it wrong if I try and guess, so I'm not even going to bother. But there's basically this this red star that passes across the world, and that causes all of the dragons to go cray-cray, and they go on just crazy rampages regardless of their own desires or whatever. And so they end up fighting one another, crashing into towns, fighting with giants, and they're just sort of rabid,
Reckless,
crazy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether they're chromatic or metallic or
Right.
what alignment they would be normally.
Right.
They just
Yep.
all feel
dragons.
this.
Yep.
This.
Yep.
Is it like
This
a
rage
heat?
of dragons.
Is it a heat thing? Is it when breeding happens?
No,
No,
it has
there's
something to do with it.
there's
Yeah.
no breeding
Okay.
going on. Just pure reckless destruction.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there? I don't know. Is there a reason for why this happens? Is the star associated with Bahamut or some other dragon god? That's why this.
No, it's just one of those bizarre celestial events, like in Night of the Living Dead, when the moon, Venus is
Yeah.
in such alignment with blah blah blah.
Right.
Zombies will rise and eat your brain. This is kind of the same thing.
Got
Yeah,
it.
it's called the King Killer Star.
Yeah.
And that sort of precipitates the rage of dragons. Let's see if I can find
Sounds
out
like
more
that's
about
going to
that.
be a good adventure in 5 to 10 years. Rage of Dragons.
Yeah,
We've
we did a novel series based on that.
Yeah, there was a few
Yeah.
of them. Yep.
Yep.
Who wrote those? Sorry to put you on the
I have
spot
look,
there,
I
but
have to look.
That's a good question. I can't remember if it was. I think it was multiple authors.
Yeah, it was definitely multiple
Yeah.
authors.
that's cool. Interesting. All right. Well, while Matt's looking this up, what's another dragon on your list?
Another dragon from Ed Greenwood's Wyrms of the North is Dezeldarinzan. Dezeldarinzan, yes. I think I got that right. Hang on, I got it written down. Dezeldarindan. There we go.
There you go.
Dezeldarindan is a silver dragon. He is a consort to Valamarades, the dragon queen of the north. I don't mean dragon queen in the Tiamat sense. She's just a
queen who is a dragon.
Gold dragon. This is a weird case where you've got a gold dragon and a silver dragon in a relationship.
That doesn't happen very often.
No. And the silver dragon, the male, is the consort. And they kind of live and hang out together. What's interesting about them, Dezeldarindan... Dizel.
Yeah.
He has an interesting lair. It is described as floating near Everland. It's called the Floating Mountain. And it's a huge, like absolutely titanic, ovoid chunk of hollowed out stone with like its own mountain peaks on top of it.
Okay.
And the dragons live inside of it. And it basically just hangs in the air for all to see.
Is it similar to like the Heart of Uptown that just does that in
Yeah,
Schultz?
yeah. It's just immensely enormous floating earth mountain near Everland. We did not mention. I remember reading up on it before writing Storm King's Thunder, and decided to actually leave it out of the adventure because it would have been such a distraction, and I didn't want to have the characters just suddenly get totally caught up in this giant flying mountain thing. But it's close enough to Everland that you'd have a hard time not seeing it as you were approaching the city.
Nice, but it sounds really cool. Now I
Yes.
want to go there and
Yes.
hang out.
Yes.
Why are they in a relationship? Like how did the gold and the silver meet?
It just ties with I think they're both lawful good, for one thing. I think they're just both fierce protectors of goodness and north. They both like to assume human forms. They're both involved politically in sort of events of the north. I think, if I remember, Dezeldarindan likes... I made a couple interesting notes here. One is he likes to impersonate people.
Oh, okay.
His thing is he's impersonated famous figures like Calban, Aronson, Illustrial, one of the Seven Sisters. He takes on their likeness and basically poses as them.
For good, like while they're deposed?
Often to imitate them when they can't be around.
Right.
And such. Like if Illustrial's off doing this, but we need her to make an appearance, or if Dezeldarindan needs to convince somebody that Illustrial's around for the good of the realm, and the good of Silvery Moon or whatever, he will take on that form and basically stand in for her.
Interesting.
The other thing he likes is he likes hippogriff flesh. So probably not many
tasty.
hippogriffs around Everland.
So the books were written by Richard Lee Beyer, and they are The Right, The Rage, and The Ruin.
There we go.
That is neat. I want to read those, find out more about the Rage of Dragons.
Yep.
All right, so we covered a lot of the metallic dragons. Are there any that we didn't cover?
No, conspicuous by their absence, not in Ed's series of articles, there were no brass or copper dragons in the north, which isn't surprising since brass and copper dragons wouldn't want to live there. They're more sort of warm dwelling dragons. Coppers being fond of deserts, and brass being fond of warm prairies and grasslands.
I see.
And hills.
Right, and the north just doesn't have a lot of those.
Not so much,
areas.
no. The temperature would not appeal to them so much, so you don't see many of them around.
Got it. Do you think there's any because of the strong presence of gold and silvers and things like that, they didn't...
It could also be that there are so many other goddamn dragons in the north that the lesser metallics, the coppers and the brass, just can't carve out a territory for themselves and feel like they can own it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to quickly mention any of the gem dragons? Do you have
a couple of odd dragons are worth mentioning of the north. One is Jalanvalos, who isn't a gem dragon actually. She is a steel dragon.
Oh, those are quite rare.
Yes. Well, yeah, particularly so because, as Elminster himself has said, steel dragons are not actually native to the realms. They're native to Greyhawk.
Dun, dun, dun.
How did they get here?
The same way that Greyhawk wizards occasionally get here, through magic portals and plane shifting and whatnot. Jolan Velos is an accomplished spellcaster. They call her the Worm of Many Spells for that reason. She is notorious because, and I'm not sure she still lives in Waterdeep. That's an open question, and I'll point out why in a moment. She is most famous for a spell duel that she waged against Kelvin Blackstaff Aronson
Himself.
in Waterdeep. Yes,
Yeesh.
they threw down, and he cast a spell to hurl her out of the city, and like 3 days later she showed up again. So defiant, to say the least.
Yeah.
Prone to assuming human form. In fact, typically when you saw her in the city, she would be in the form of a beautifully dressed lady. And a notorious figure for that reason. The reason why she might not be in Waterdeep presently is because of the Dragon Staff of Agaron. The Dragon Ward of Waterdeep. The Dragon Ward of Waterdeep is a magical effect around the city that prohibits dragons from entering.
Right.
Unless those dragons have been touched by the Dragon Staff of Agaron, which is like a get-in card for them.
Right. And who's in control of the staff now?
Well, until recently it was in the hands of a archwizard of Waterdeep named Maril, but Maril left Waterdeep and left the staff behind. So in whose clutches? I can't say. I know the answer to that question, but I'm not going to reveal it just yet.
Interesting.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, Marl was a funny character because he was sort of this kind of good wizard in that he kept the dragons out of the city and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he was actually a real jerk, and the fantastic thing was that he built his castle tower in the city to look like a big rampant dragon. So it's just like a big stone, like arr!
It's like a big F you to you dragons.
Yeah.
You can't come here, although
Right.
you want to fight.
Yes.
I know
Yeah,
you do.
And apparently it blew up during the spell plague, and its head is used as part of a fountain on the side of the mountainside.
That's an even bigger F you to be like, by the way, we made
So,
sculptures out of your heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
So during the story with Rise of Tiamat and Horde of the Dragon Queen, the Dragon Ward is down, but now it's up again. So.
Okay. So there was a brief period where she could have gotten in and is still hanging out.
Right.
But is the Dragon Ward strong enough that once it came back up, all dragons that were inside the city limits, they're then pushed out again?
They would have to be. They would feel compelled to
walk
leave.
out. All right.
It's sort of like the second edition term is an antipathy spell. So, and that like the closer you get to whatever it is that you have that antipathy towards, like the more sort of sick and like the weaker you get, and so on and so forth.
So no dragons want to ever feel that way, so they
Right.
don't even come
Yes.
close.
Now the ward only covers the city proper. It does not encompass its harbor or underground. So you
so
may
s-
still find dragons there.
In Skullport, perhaps even.
Perhaps.
Nice.
Yes,
All right, that
indeed.
makes sense.
So we mentioned Jolan Velos because she was sort of a weird outlier.
Yeah.
Another one is El Denser, the worm who hides in blades.
All right.
Now is he a topaz?
Amethyst.
Amethyst. Okay, he's an amethyst dragon.
So
who,
purpley.
Who a crystalline purple dragon who hides out in swords, and that's basically where he exists solely now. And he can basically transfer himself from sword to sword. Any sword. It could be a short sword, a long sword, a great sword, but it has to be a sword. It doesn't even have to be a magical sword.
So, like some of the others we've discussed, does he still have a body?
I think it's actually stowed away somewhere. I don't know if I have any notes on this, but
So this dragon is able to is that like
Yes.
where sentient dragons or sentient weapons come from in a way?
no, it has nothing to do with that. But he could, if you were to find the sword with him in it, you might think it is just a typical sentient weapon, not realizing
your
that
everyday one.
Yeah.
it's got the disembodied dragon living inside it. For all intents and purposes, it's the same. It functions similarly to a sentient, but he doesn't have the sort of sentient weapon ability to dominate and control you. He can just try to use his honeyed words and persuade you to do what he wants,
Interesting.
or tell you he'll go to a different blade, and all the knowledge that he possesses will have left you. He does reportedly, his body is hidden, of all places, in the City of the Dead in Waterdeep.
Oh.
There's a lot of crazy in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you counted up all the mausoleums in the City of the For those who don't know, the City of the Dead in Waterdeep is a parkland cemetery that basically is an entire ward of the city. It's a massive
Yeah, it's
park,
like
which
Central
people-
Park.
It's Central Park, and people can go there and have picnics and dine, and, and there are all these beautifully maintained mausoleums belonging to the oldest families of Waterdeep all around you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of solemn but beautiful in a way. And some of these mausoleums have gateways leading to hidden places where like bodies are stored and things like that, and others just contain the remnants of dead families. One of them apparently contains a crypt with a vampire in it, and then a gigantic dungeon complex called the Dungeon of the Crypt. And then there's obviously another one with the remains of an amethyst dragon somewhere.
Well, so I have to say, there aren't any gem dragons in 5th edition yet.
Right.
And if I have anything to say about it, there never will be.
Oh no.
I am a gem dragon hater. Put me down as a gem
Yes.
dragon hater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Why? Just real quick. What's your hate on the?
So for me, it's like there was all the metallic dragons and all the chromatic dragons, and then people started doing all of these so there's purple dragons and there's orange dragons and there's brown dragons and there's, like, oh, come on,
dragons.
there's steel and there's iron and there's oh god,
The urge to sort of fill out every possible thing.
Right,
So
right.
cobalt and orichalcum and
yeah, and then all of a sudden now, we'll leap to gem. Well, now we got all these other things that we can fill out. And
we don't have neutral dragons. So
This is the way to do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
And
I like it as a spice. I think you're right. I think if you're just having, this is something that's
Yeah.
weird and different, that makes
Right.
total sense. But once
Yeah.
you start putting all the spices into the stew, it starts to get bland.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're going
Yeah.
at. Right. That
for
makes
me,
sense to me.
it sort of diminishes the coolness of the 5 chromatic and 5 metallics to have add-ons of all these different other things, and then it further diminishes them to have the gem dragons be like this other wing.
Right. Got
And when you're talking about like cosmic conflicts between like Tiamat and Bahamut, which have waged since the beginning of time, and then you've got this sort of other outlying group of dragons who just sort of come marching in and say, "Hey, what about us? How do we fit into the grand scheme of things?" It's like, oh, go fuck off.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
But at the same time, in your own campaign world, you can imagine that the gem dragons came from some far-flung world. They were brought through from portals, so
Yeah.
they're not part of the dragon cosmology of the world. They're outsiders that intrude. Or conversely, in your world, you may not have the chromatics and the metallics at all. You can have Ed Greenwood detailed a bevy of these crystal gem dragons,
Right.
and they could be the only dragons in your world.
Yeah, I like that too. So I love all these. I love all these metallic dragons that can be used as not adversaries, but things that
Gem
can.
dragons were psionic, weren't they?
Yep, they had
That's
a lot
right.
of sonic powers.
Yeah.
They were a great way to bring psionics into the game, essentially.
Oh, that
These
makes sense,
resident
too.
crystal dragons. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Always with the crystals and the psionics,
Yes.
all the time.
There is, yeah.
It's a new age thing, man.
yeah.
It just kind of happens. Cool. Any quick advice for how to? You already mentioned a few things of like how to make them interesting in your home game. But like if you're going to use metallic dragons, maybe some of the stories that we talked about here. What's some quick advice you might give to dungeon masters?
I think that the best use of metallic dragons is to hide them in plain sight. Because metallics have a penchant for assuming humanoid forms, they are easily disguised. They might have little subtle idiosyncrasies or visual cues that might betray them to the studied eye, but they can lurk in your midst and be sort of kindly forces to help you out in times of great despair or get you on an adventure if you need to go. Because they're interested in hoarding stuff, they're exactly the right kinds of benefactors to send a party of adventurers off to retrieve a lost artifact, particularly if they think they should be the ones to safeguard it.
Yeah, and I like the idea of having these characters that are able to kind of push you and nudge you in various directions, and it's because they see some sort of long-term gain in that, right? Like it's not just because they probably don't individually care about you. Like you can live or die, you're going to live or die, they're going to outlast you, whatever. But they're looking at the grand scheme of things. They're trying to sort of do the greater good and that kind of a thing. And then you have a character who is sort of that benefactor for you, but might also at certain points be doing things that are not so good for you in the short term.
Right.
You know, and that can be kind of an interesting conflict.
I like that.
There's fun stuff too. Like Bahamut has like some number, it might be 6, but it might be more than that, of golden canaries that he
7.
7? Is that what it is? 7
golden canaries.
And they're actually
polymorph gold dragon.
Yeah, polymorph gold dragons. So that's like a fun thing. So like you imagine, you have like some character who's maybe the wizard in your town or something like that, and he's got these 7 golden canaries, and he's the wizard's sort of master and teaches the wizard some spells and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, boom! Sometime later in the campaign, when characters are 20th level, they can realize that that's actually Bahamut the whole time, or something like that.
That's been so
Yeah.
cool. All right, I like that a lot too. All right, cool. You're giving us lots of ways to do it. Since Chris and I are both wearing dark colors, we're obviously black dragons, and you're an orange dragon.
That's
today.
right. Yeah, I got stuck with orange dragon.
You've been hiding this whole time as an orange dragon. All right, guys, thanks. If people wanted to throw some ideas for dragons that they might have at you, how could they get in touch with you on the Twitters?
I am at Chris Perkins DND.
What about you, Mr. Cernett?
And I am at Cernett, Sernett.
And I am at Greg Tito. And we'll be back next week with another segment. Thanks, guys. Bum.
How much time we got?
It's 15:07. It's 2:07. Did you have something at 2 that you needed to do, or did you want to do nothing until 2:30?
We can knock out Sigil.
Yeah.
It's
3:07. Yes.
3:07, yep.
Sorry. I can add.
yeah.
Military time. It's good stuff. All right, let's do it. Let's do Sigil. Let's knock it out of the park.
Donut of the multiverse.
At least a few people agree with you guys because they said RuneScape has got gem dragons, and they didn't like that. The game RuneScape. But I will say one of the guests wrote up a whole thing on gem dragons in 5th edition. James Hake, who helped out Matt with the.
I know James.
Yeah.
Now I have something to hold over him.
Yeah, exactly. I think he wrote that up for Wolfgang and Cobalt Press.
All right.
Which is good stuff. But I do agree that if you get too, like I said,
the too many spices in the soup is a good analogy.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We're recording. Good. How are you guys doing out there in Twitch land? Are you guys doing all right? Carbon fiber dragon. I think that's a good idea.
Kevlar dragon.
I was going to ask about because there's the metallic steel dragon is weird because it's an alloy that would have been created at some point in human history.
Yeah.
But then brass is that too. Brass is copper and tin. So,
absolutely.
That's why I didn't ask the question because I'm like, all right, well.
Yeah, I'm sure was there a nickel dragon? There must have been.
Yeah, I'm sure there was,
Zinc dragon.
The zinc dragon. You must eat me in order to defeat disease.
Oh.
Welcome to another Lore You Should Know segment. I am Greg Tito, and Lore You Should Know is where I interview these fine, wonderful lore masters, Mr. Chris Perkins.
Hello.
And Matt Cernett.
Howdy.
About little tidbits of Dungeons & Dragons lore, topics that you can have for your own education, as well as ways that you can get it into your game. And today we are going to talk about Sigil. Not to be pronounced Sigil, or it could be, I guess. But it's the House of Doors.
House of Doors.
That is a name of an old door store in my hometown named House of Doors. That's why I popped in there. But it's the City of Doors.
It is.
And a quite interesting place for many reasons.
Yeah. Yes. So there is discussion of this, or it is introduced in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. In chapter 2, which talks about the plains, one of the locations that's talked about in some detail is Sigil. So we don't have to repeat too much, other than to say, imagine, if you will, a city built on the inside ring of a torus, i.e. a donut.
Well, yeah, or a tire, really.
A tire, yeah. On the inside ring of a tire. Yeah. So it is sort of concave on the inside, and it sits on top of, flat on top of, a thin mountain spire that looks like a needle that gets gradually wider as it spreads down into a part of the multiverse called the Outlands.
Yeah.
It just hangs above this
it floats
spire.
above it. So and the spire itself in the Outlands is infinite. So
yes.
It just goes on and on and on forever in space.
Yeah. So if you decided to say fly up the spire to get up to Sigil, because you can see that little glimmering disc up there
on
on the top of this needle. you just keep going and going.
You never
and
get
going.
there. Similarly, if you just detach from Sigil and fly down the mountain spire, you'll never get to the bottom.
Yeah, and in fact, if you go out of the bounds of Sigil itself and wander off into that space, like you just sort of float off into this void, and it's not really clear what happens to you.
You can just go on.
Right.
Just go.
But why would you leave Sigil? Because it is such.
It's an awful, awful place.
It's a wondrous place. It's called the City of Doors because it is basically at the center of the multiverse. And there are lots, and by lots I mean hundreds, if not thousands, of portals that will take you there. The trick to getting through a door in Sigil is you have to have its key. And a magical door to another plane or to another planet or to another part of the city is closed to you unless you carry the right key. And the key may not necessarily look like a key. It might be a lock of hair from an angel or a scale of a dragon or a air freshener.
A particular tune that you sing.
A tune that you have to sing. Or, yes.
Yeah. And the aperture for the doorway might not be an actual door. It might be the top of a barrel or, I mean, it's...
a manhole.
Whoosh, it's
Could be
crazy.
anything,
Yeah.
right? And Sigil is dramatized in Planescape Torment, the game that's currently available on Good Old Games and on things like that. It's a great game. And also the hometown of Strix. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, Holly Conrad's character from Dice Camera Action, Strix, comes from Sigil, and recently was taken back there briefly.
Against her will, or
yeah, she did not go willingly into that good donut. And then, so Sigil is home to a number of very powerful cutters and members of groups that we call factions, which rally around philosophies, these sort of planar philosophies of how the multiverse works, or how the multiverse should work. These philosophies gather, as believers get together who share a common belief, they form organizations. Sigil has a number of these organizations living within it. Many of them have polar opposite beliefs about how the multiverse works and therefore at odds with each other. Right. Others have beliefs that can kind of coincide or at least coexist on some basic level. These factions are all led by powerful beings called factals. They're the heads of their factions, the truest of the true believers. And there have been wars, or at least one war waged among the factions in known history.
Within the city limits itself?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That has torn some factions asunder and caused them to kind of have to reform in different ways.
Yeah, so the one of the things about the city is that it is absolutely massive. So it's about 2 miles wide, and I think it's, it's about 20 miles in circumference all the way around. So basically what that, if you put that in real world terms, that is the entire island of Manhattan from the tip at like Battery Park, like all the way up to...
Wrapping around itself.
And so you don't get back to Battery Park again until you're up in... like Yonkers or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the other disturbing thing, of course, is that you can see the other half of the city directly above you, because the gravity works so that your feet are always planted on the inside of the ring, which means you can see the opposite side of the ring and the buildings.
Right. And then the streets also curve out to sort of, in addition to going around the circle. They also curve upward. So you're in a weird experience, like you're looking in the city. Basically, every time you look down a street and can see a long stretch of streets, they're all going up. In the short term, they might go down and up or whatever, but like everything always seems to be sort of going up. It's a strange sort of situation.
Interesting, right? Feels alien for that reason. Is there a overarching city government? Who's in charge of Sigil?
Well, that's complicated. So
he said knowingly.
Ultimately, the Lady of Pain is in charge.
Right.
So the Lady of Pain basically is this mysterious figure with sort of blades projecting from her head.
Her face is the icon of Planescape.
Yeah.
It's the symbol that you see on all Planescape products.
And she has power over basically pretty much everything that happens in the city. And so things follow her weird rules. One of those rules is sort of like a a more or less peace treaty between various extraplanar beings. So if you're an angel and you see a Pallor, you can't just walk across the street and punch it, because the people who disobey these sort of strange rules that she has get exiled into what's called the maze. And so the
mazes, actually.
Mazes, yeah. So let's say the Pallor and the angel get into a fight. It would be a bit like in Inception when the buildings start folding and moving around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It'd be like that, and basically everyone would start running away from them because they'd know the mazes are coming. And then those people get sort of locked away in the mazes, which is this extra-dimensional place where they might spend who knows how long, or might not encounter other beings there.
Yeah. They might, in all likelihood,
starve to death.
Most creatures that go to the mazes are never seen again.
Yeah.
Is the maze Sigil in itself, or is
No, it is
a completely different?
It's some
plane?
other space that's just created extra-dimensionally.
Yeah. And it's unclear where it resides spatially with anything else. It could be in the Lady of Pain herself, for all we know.
Interesting, right?
Because she is a very large, enormous, floating, enigmatic figure who never talks, who never communicates with anybody. If she shows up, she just looks at somebody, and that person's gone.
Yeah, or they're flayed alive. Because
Yeah.
the other thing that happens is that she'll just look at you and all your flesh will come off.
Right, that's the lady. They call her the Lady of Pain because she can cleanse you with a look, basically.
Yeah.
So who put her in charge of Sigil?
She did.
Yeah.
Is she a goddess?
No. Ish. So she doesn't. One of the other rules about Sigil is that there aren't any gods allowed. So that's
Right.
one of the main rules. And so one of her big deals, basically, it's partially revealed in one of the novels that's written for the Planescape setting, is basically about how keeping gods out is important, because essentially, if gods got in, then they would have the power, because of their powerful belief, to control how the multiverse works. And looks.
Okay.
So normal mortals and other powerful beings like angels and devils and stuff like that are allowed into Sigil, and their beliefs and the shared beliefs of lots of people are out throughout the entire multiverse are kind of what make the multiverse take shape. But the idea is basically, if gods got in, they'd be powerful enough to sort of like take over that system and reform everything in their own vision.
I see.
She is the check to the balance to kind of like the very structure of the cosmos. It is unclear that the multiverse could exist without her.
Interesting. Yeah. So in our current thinking, maybe she's the reason why. I mean, you say maybe the mazes is in herself. Like maybe the multiverse is also part of her.
And these are sort of the big philosophical questions that Planescape, since its inception, has always kind of skirted around and toyed with. Yeah. But like any smart setting, doesn't try to answer everything. It's like trying to get to the answer of what happens when we die. It's just one of those unanswerable, fascinating questions about why she does, what purpose she serves. Why is it the gods can't exile her or throw her out? Yeah. They can't touch her. She's impervious, impregnable, inscrutable, and indomitable.
Interesting. But that's also what makes adventuring in Sigil that much more fascinating.
It's fascinating because you can rub shoulders with demons and devils and angels and all kinds of other planar beings, as well as beings from other worlds who have been drawn here through one of the infinite number of doors.
Right.
And so it is the metropolis of metropoli in D&D, the place where literally anything can be seen, found, tasted, touched, and
where Elvis and Jimmy Hoffa are. It's
Right.
where Elminster is. It's where
yes.
all those things.
And so it's freeing as a DM to toy with that idea, and enormously petrifying in terms of its scope and sheer everythingness.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different neighborhoods. I mean, and by neighborhood, I mean like giant boroughs in the sense of like the Bronx and stuff like that in New York City. That it's just that these massive spaces to sort of think and play in.
Yes.
So it's sort of hard to conceive a lot of times like how you actually adventure in this kind of space, right? Because it kind of escapes the bounds of imagination because it's so huge and then it's so complicated.
The factions are sort of a route in the city that you can kind of grab onto as a player. Like, you can belong to a faction. Each faction has a headquarters in the city, and it's usually some grand titanic structure, whether it's the foundry, this great sort of smoke billowing structure where all things are made, or it's the armory where or there's like this big mortuary that's one of them. There's a gymnasium that's another one, and the Harmonium, which is sort of a self-dictated police force in the city. They have a stronghold there.
Yeah, you asked how it's governed. So there's a couple of different forces. There's the Dabu, and they're these weird floaty beings that communicate with symbols.
Yeah,
and they're basically the street cleaners and repairmen, caretakers and stuff like that. That's basically all that they do. And they are beholden to the Lady of Pain and pretty much nothing else. But then the factions step in and do a lot of the other roles so the Harmonium is the police force. What is the Guild of the Scriveners?
The Governors?
The Governors are kind of the governmental,
bureaucracy.
Yeah, they sort of groove on bureaucracy, so they've kind of filled that role.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it wouldn't have existed in the city without them, but you can't imagine a city without it.
One thing that I was always confused about, without knowing a lot about the setting and Sigil itself, this is not an afterlife. This is not where people go after they're dead, because it kind of feels like that a little bit. Right? Or maybe, I don't know.
I guess because anything could practically be there, it could, but no.
Because
the souls of the dead don't come here. This is where you come for commerce and to meet far-flung beings that you can't find anywhere else.
So it's on par with more like a cosmic
it's a
hub
cosmic hub
of commerce and things rather than
it's a cosmic hub.
Yeah.
It's a launching point potentially to an adventure in any other corner of the multiverse.
As well as being a conduit between, we're in Forgotten Realms now, we're going to the Greyhawk, and that's how we have to get there. We have to go through Sigil.
I mean, there are ways to get around the multiverse without going through Sigil. You don't have to go through Sigil to get to somewhere else necessarily.
Yeah. Unless
Sigil is your destination. The plane shift spell, for instance, can take you directly from the material plane to the Nine Hells. No problem there.
Right.
The reason you'd want to maybe go through Sigil instead is because there's somebody in Sigil who knows something about the Nine Hells that you don't. And you need some information, or there's something you need in the Nine Hells to survive, or an artifact that's up for sale there, or whatever, there's there was a book called Faces of Uncaged, Faces of Sigil, which described sort of a smattering of personalities that you would find there. It was really, for me as a DM fascinated with Planescape, a godsend, because it gave me NPCs that the characters could interact with that sort of filled a variety of roles in the city. Like there's an Alfeshni judge, and there's Cambions, and but like there's is she a tiefling or Cambion, Aluvius Ruskin? I think she's a Cambion.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
but tieflings are interesting to point out here too, because these were the first time we've seen tieflings, whereas we're in Sigil, right?
Yeah, but I as a DM, I grabbed Aluvius Ruskin because she's this old baddie Cambion who lives in this tower of antiquities, and she just collects stuff. So if you need something, you go to her, and she can point out and know where to go and that kind of thing. Another one I like is Rule of Three. He is a Cambion who hangs out at a tavern in Sigil, and they call him Rule of Three because he always tells you things in threes and reinforces the idea that there is in the multiverse this idea of the Rule of Three, that things happen in threes. You need 3 keys to get through here. You have to solve 3 riddles to get this thing or what. He's all about that 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And Sigil is so full of all these quirky characters like that, that they help bring the place to life. You can sort of deal with the magnitude of the place by focusing on just a handful of characters there.
And paint in a brush that's weird and strange,
Yeah,
things you wouldn't find anywhere else.
Basically, any of the most bizarre D&D monsters that you can think of, you could put in Sigil, and it'll just seem normal.
Right. Yes.
So,
And then they're on par with everyone else. That's
Right.
also,
Yeah.
I mean, like as you mentioned,
Right.
Balors and demon and devils can't fight each other, but here they all can coexist and be part of the same world. And it's just
Yeah.
like Bob down the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there have been conflicts that have not been resolved in the past. So there has been, for example, a point where devils and demons brought some of the blood war into Sigil, and they wrecked a huge part of the city. And for some reason, they weren't stopped. And so that part is still sort of this crazy, like no man's land of ruins and smoking craters and stuff like that. And bizarrely, these big black boxes that contain either abyssal weapons, or maybe they're hellish infernal tools or magic items, or maybe it's just a weird monster. And then there's like a bizarre sort of alien like Aliens versus Predator style alien like abyssal creature that hunts in that area still, that is sort of like the Loch Ness monster of that part of the city. And so
I guess Lady Pain must like it.
yeah, she must
it's still
be
there.
okay with it because
Yeah.
it's still there. Like, no one's done anything about it.
Yeah.
Oh well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I feel like that's a good overview for our listeners on what Sigil is and what you could be and stories you could tell in it.
Yeah.
I
Has
agree-
normal oxygen. You
Yep.
can cast all spells there. There's
Yep.
no other like planar effects.
There's a statue of Bigby somewhere in the
Yep.
city. I forget
There
where.
is.
Does Big B live there?
No, and from what I can tell from the lore, there's no idea even that Bigby ever even got to the city. So how there came to be a statue of Bigby somewhere in
Somebody
the
must
city.
have brought it.
I don't know.
Somebody was a
Something
fan.
Somebody was a fan. and they,
It passed on through,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of hands before it finally ended up in
Ba-dum-bum.
Sigil.
Yes. Very big hands. Awesome. So if people want to pester you with great ideas for NPCs within Sigil, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter at Chris Perkins DND.
I'm also on Twitter at Cernet, SERNETT.
And you can ask me any questions, although I'll probably just pass it on to these folks. I'm at Greg Tito.
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Waffle Crew will go back there at some point.
Nice.
Don't know when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's maybe they'll adventure there for a couple of
Maybe.
sessions. We'll see.
Or maybe they'll just run back to the planar, the material plane.
We did one on Shmeshka,
We did.
the Marauder, and
a very famous Sigilian denizen.
exactly. So maybe we'll have some more of those as we go further along. Thanks, you guys. We'll be back with another segment next week. All right, we're out. That's a lot of talking about lore stuff. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We are going to take a short break here on the Twitches. We are going to be back probably around 3:50 or so. I'll come back on and talk to you guys. So enjoy a few ads while we take this quick break. We are, of course, going to tell you that you can subscribe to the Dungeons and Dragons channel. You get awesome emotes, like some of the like Obu Crazy is in there right now, throwing some out there. You won't have to watch these ads, and instead you'll watch a webcam of what we're doing in this room, which is mostly just dancing and doing thriller dances back and forth. And of course, we'll have more and stuff coming on here, including cool badges that you can put on your thing for only $5. So subscribe now while you can, and in the meantime, watch us setting up and or breaking down here and these ads. So thanks, guys. We'll be back in about 10-20 minutes. See you later.
Bye.